You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by Nax. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Over the past year, the two of us have visited well more than 100 stores between us. We do it because it's our job. We also do it because it's a lot of fun. And we thought we'd share some of the findings of what we saw in stores in 2023 and what it might mean to your stores in 2024. So today, Chrissy and I are going to dissect some of the stores that we visited, what we saw, some of the things that may not have been communicated in podcasts and blogs, on LinkedIn, in Nax Magazine, wherever else.
Social media.
Yeah, wherever else we've talked about it. Some of the things that are bear repeating, and some of them that we're saying for the first time, just because we finally remembered it going through some pictures. So, yeah, we've been on a couple of road trips with our chairman, Don Rhodes. We've gone on Ideas to Go shoots. We've done all kinds of different trips, sometimes on the weekend, just because it's fun.
Yeah.
But still, when you look at convenience stores, I think best place to start is they are still beverage destinations. When you look at our surveys that we do, most people say number one reason they're going inside is to get a beverage of some sort. So it's the middle of winter. You want to start with some hot coffee and what we've seen with some what we've seen in coffee in stores over the past year.
Yeah, I think, a lot of it is the customization part. Might not be a huge surprise for some of the retailers listening. But, just the fact that there is a ton of competition no matter where you go for that hot beverage. And it's not so much that I'm only coming in for coffee, but what else am I doing while I'm in the store getting that cup of coffee? And, my favorites are the ones where, I personally still like the coffee in the air pot, right? Like I'll pick that over the bean to cup. So maybe I'm a minority, maybe I'm not. I don't care. That's my preference. And I am specific about how much milk I put in. I'm specific about how much sweetener I put in. And I put all that stuff in. I put that in my coffee before I actually get the coffee. So for me, because I put all my condiments in first, like the air pots help me control the overflow factor a lot better. So yeah, every customer is different. And that's the beauty of convenience stores is that we cater to every type of customer, however they make their coffee. And for me, I think I make it backwards, but that's just me.
Well, I think that's known as Army style when I've seen other people do it. People in the military, I know, but they say that's the way they do it. Just move it right through the line. The other thing with air pots, I think that we've heard from some people that have had air pots is bean to cup is awesome. It allows it is the fresh flavor. There's a lot of positives. Yes. Yeah. And it's theater. But one thing is it does take a little bit of time. So we've talked to some retailers who have said, hey, sometimes we get this rush in the morning where a construction crew comes out and 6 workers pile out of a van. They want coffee fast. And that 45-second to 1-minute experience times 8 can be kind of cumbersome. So we've seen some retailers kind of pivot where they have the bean to cup and they have the air pot because they're looking at a couple different customers because, as you said, every customer is different, and sometimes the same customer is different.
Yeah, and that's another beauty of convenience stores is it's choice, right? Like we recognize very quickly that some people they just have a preference, and as soon as you hear like the grinder hit though, like that just conveys fresh. Like you hear it, you smell that's fresh. That's fresh coffee. So for some customers that's what they're looking for, especially if they're used to doing the $4 Starbucks run or whatever. They're looking for that fresh cup of coffee, however they perceive it to be. They might perceive that something sitting in an air pot isn't as fresh. We know different, and the retailers know different, of course, but that's you got to cater to that.
Yeah, and as coffee has come back, as the commuter has come back, and that morning drive has come back, we also saw some retailers that are really aggressively pushing coffee and pushing free coffee. I remember a couple of years ago, we visited a racetrack, and they told us, I believe it was the month of October, they give away free coffee for a week or 2 weeks or maybe even the whole month. And we said that must cost a lot of money. And it's like basically what they said is if we can't give away 1,000 cups of coffee a day for free, we'll never be able to sell 1,000 cups of coffee a day. So let's get the customer in that mindset. Wawa, same thing. When we visited Wawa just a few months ago, they had free coffee Tuesdays if you have the app. So how do you use coffee not just as something that people want, but how do you tie it into something else? How do you get them to use the app? How do you get them to do a subscription? How do you kind of get that loyalty back that's been missing somewhat since the pandemic?
I think QSRs do this well. I see a lot on social where, if it's like a Wendy's or a McDonald's or whoever, you'll get, I'm just making this up, but, free French fries for the rest of the year on Thursdays. And that sounds great, but you got to have the app.
Right.
And so those type of promotions are pretty good to see. When you see that pop up on social, it definitely intrigues me. I'm also someone who doesn't want a lot of apps on my phone, so maybe I'm not the right customer for that. But it's, I think that those are the kind of things that just give you some flexibility to reach new customers in a new way. Probably the younger customer, I would think. But
we talked about QSRs. One thing they can't do is sell beer, wine, and spirits. And we saw a lot of different combinations of that on the road. Let me just start out with, we went to a store in San Diego that had a bottle of bourbon, I think, was it?
I don't know what it was. It was up pretty high. I couldn't read it.
But it was $9,999.99. So basically $10,000.
And then you get that song stuck in your head, 999 bottles of beer on the wall or whatever.
But it was bourbon. But, that's certainly high end. And that's not something you're going to be able to take cash out of the ATM. But obviously in that case, it was more of a prop than anything else. It says we're serious about liquor. And if we have this, which is a real primo quality bottle of bourbon that's very sought after and very well recognized, we curate everything else fairly well.
Yeah. And I put a picture of that with some other pictures from some fun stuff that we did on the road up on my LinkedIn page. And Frank Beard chimed in that he saw a $30,000 bottle at a Hy-Vee in his neck of the woods. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
he also said it's still sitting there.
So do you want to buy that new car or do you want to buy a bottle of booze? So pick your poison, I guess. But it wasn't, spirits is one thing. We also saw a whole bunch of interesting, when we were on the West Coast in particular, wine and what people were doing with wine and pairings, particularly in Sonoma and Napa Valley.
Yeah. And just looking at our state of the industry data, our NACS data, obviously the region 6 in the West there kills it with wine, right? For obvious reasons, it's wine country, it's California. Pacific Northwest, it's going to do a little better than, say, Florida.
Right.
But yeah, the fun thing about that was that one Circle K that we went into, I think it was in Napa, actually. Yeah. And I mean, just the charcuterie and the high-end meats and cheeses and, you grab your wine, grab your picnic. I mean, it really spoke to what customers are doing around there. And, it was a beautiful store. And then the one that we went to that had the wine tasting, it wasn't just, giving somebody a little plastic cup with some wine in it. I mean, they had comfortable seating and couches and chairs, and it was very inviting. Just a really look like a convenience store that I would actually want to hang out in.
And it was an AM/PM, I believe.
Yeah, it was Gilmore's store, I believe. Yeah.
So also a day before the NAC show, Stephanie Stuckey, she gave me we went on a little road trip around Atlanta. That's where she's from. And we visited 5 or so convenience stores. And one of them was exactly what you just described. It was wine forward in Atlanta, high-end wine, good margins, and pairing with high-end food. And sure, you also could get a candy bar, you can get things like that. But it was really focused on let's build something that is fun to snack on as a group. And there was some nice margin in that. I was very impressed to see that right there, just a few minutes away from the convention center in Atlanta.
Yeah. And I am curious, speaking if we're staying on the booze, I'd say probably let's go back like 8 or 9 years ago. And it seemed like convenience retailers are really getting into the growlers and taking advantage of, the craft beer excitement and, new styles and flavors. And people were really like grabbing onto that. Maybe someone who's listening can kind of chime in on this with us. Email us or whatever, or hit us up on social, but I just don't see growlers the way that they used to be anymore. I don't know if that's like, no pun intended, but kind of flattened out, or, we had growler stations in stores, like really dedicated areas. And I'm curious how that's, if anyone's still doing that well.
I saw that, visited Kent Couch's store in Bend, Oregon, and he was at the vanguard of the growler movement. I visited him a couple of years ago. He had something like 40 taps of beer, high-end beer, kombucha, and some other things. Visited this past summer, and he was transitioning. That growler area was going to be a restaurant now. Yeah. And part of the reason is, good and bad, is there are so many craft beers available in cans now that it is less necessary to go to the source to get it bottled or crowler or growler.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That you can just get these high-end beers. The canning has improved, and it's just a lot more readily available. But that's certainly something we noticed in the past year.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll go to the non-alcohol beverages now. Looking at the cooler doors, what popped with you this past year?
Prime.
Yes.
And I think that's probably that's another good kind of maybe slipped under the radar a little bit, because the kids were all over it, but us old folk were not, right? I initially thought that it was just this souped up energy drink because I didn't know any better. But, it really is in the interesting way that product came out with the two social media influencers, which speaks to the strength of, that tapping into the influencers and stuff, and how powerful they can be for marketing to folks who are on social.
And I think
took off.
It was also the packaging that played a role, because it was very clean packaging. We've heard over the last couple of years in terms of graphic design is your logo should look like it could fit on an app. It has to be clean. It can't be busy. And the Prime logo was essentially 5 letters. Yeah. Very, very big font. And it stood out from the crowd. So when there was demand, you could pretty quickly go into a store and see, do they have it or don't they have it?
Yeah, and that beverage speaks to the strength of our channel. We're grab and go. We're immediate consumption. I would argue that no other retail channel can do hydration like we can, with the cooler doors and the amount of space that we dedicate to it, and just the the category management and time and attention it takes to get those sets right. And that we're a destination, and sports drinks, energy drinks, that stuff is not going away, man. It's just not. Like, I think I wrote in that one article, I don't know who said it, and I still don't know what this means, but someone said something effective like, you can't swing a dead cat at the NAC show and not hit an energy drink. And I guess that means there's a lot of energy drinks, but it's true. And my first NAC show was 18 years ago, and I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a slowdown.
No, and for the record, dead cats are prohibited on the NAC show floor. So
I think that would be bad.
But the other thing we noticed, and I think we saw it in Texas, I think we saw it also in Missouri, is you talk about the cooler doors and you talk about hydration, but we also saw some refueling water stations outside the store. Yeah. And this is for the big volume. You're filling up a gallon, you're filling up 3 gallons. And obviously this is not something you're going to take in the office. Yeah. But it's for the construction crews, or maybe even people that prefer filtered water in their home or something like that. It was just something we saw a little bit more of, I think, than we've seen in previous years. Tended to be in rural areas or areas that are prone to be very warm in the summer. But it was definitely
but those jugs are huge too, right? Like, you don't want to take that into a convenience store. Where are you going to fill that up inside?
No.
So it's too big.
So it's obviously it's there. Yeah. But going back to the cooler doors, one of the things that we also noticed, I talked to a couple people about that, and they said that the stickers on the cooler doors often inform their food decision.
Right.
And companies like Sheetz, you'll see on the cooler doors, buy this and get 50% off a food thing, or some combination, some sort of offer. And we've talked to some customers and says, that really does affect my decision. I don't necessarily say I'm going to buy this sandwich, but I'm going to let the cooler door offer dictate what I'm going to have for lunch today.
Sure. I mean, if you don't already have your planned purchase, you don't already have your favorite, your standby, and you're willing to test something new. Yeah.
Well, also, when we were on the road, we talked about prom. We talked about the cool merchandising, marketing, just branding.
Yeah.
Wally's did an amazing job with their dispensed
Wally's
beverages.
Is definitely a standout for sure.
What they did is they had old-time logos on the dispensed fountain, and it just looked cool. It looked like you were
Retro.
in a different place.
Vintage.
Yeah. And saw the same thing at Dash Inn, which is local in the DC area. They had
but I didn't go there. You did.
Yeah, but it had a very unique pulse for their dispensed beverages. They felt more like old style bar taps that would be behind the bar, as opposed to pushing a button. And so there's different ways and they were using that to communicate that their beverages were a little different. I had a cucumber soda, which isn't something I would have sought out, but once I had it, it's like, oh, that was really good.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say and for Wally's, they had a huge, their branding there is swoosh for their fountain area. Half fountain area was massive. And I mean, you could find anything there. Right. And you're talking about the cucumber stuff. Like there are people who want, the standbys, the good, they want that Mountain Dew, they want the Pepsi, they want the Coke. But then there are people who want, just a healthier soft drink, right? A healthier carbonated beverage. So, that's where you get into the seltzers and the craft sodas that you're talking about with all natural ingredients and stuff. So again, it's catering to the masses. Just having some fun with fun flavors too.
Well, earlier today we were talking about Wally's, and we were talking about something different with Wally's. You were talking about how we're talking about food now. Yeah. What Wally's does is people involved in the food prep area are wearing different uniforms than everybody else. They
have chef jackets on.
And it basically conveys we're serious about food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no one is more serious about food than in Ireland, where you spent some time.
Yeah, Ireland it's a beautiful island, really. And you have, your big city, Dublin, and then, maybe a couple other ones, but not of that size. And, and it's very rural. Like you are rolling through some greenery to get from A to B. And so they have, the travel plazas, pretty big stops along the way. And, for residents, tourists alike, I mean, there's not a whole huge, massive infrastructure of highway and roadway there. So there are, you do kind of stay on the same roads a little bit. And, that's your stop, right? You need to get gas. You need to go to the bathroom. You need to get something to eat. You need something to drink. And there is, you can walk in and see a lot of variety. One of the Circle K's we went to, I believe I got Singapore noodles. They had, an Asian concept. They had, I'm pretty sure McDonald's, unless I'm misspeaking on that one, I apologize. And then they had their own proprietary sandwiches and stuff there. But, just tons of choice. And bakery is huge, absolutely huge. And of course, going back to coffee, because you need that little pick me up. But yeah, the idea there too is that you're stopping and you're resting and you're taking your time to get something. It's not the rushed American, I need to get on the road.
Yeah.
quickly.
How many crumbs will I get on me when I eat this? Yeah.
Yeah. So they really, they do an excellent job at just bringing food and variety, and again, catering to anyone who could possibly want something walking into those stores.
And the other thing that I noticed, I was there a few years ago, but these are on the side of the road. They're petrol stations as much as anything.
Yeah.
But they had pre-prepared sandwiches that were in nooks, maybe some kind of wood design or something like that. It felt like you were in a bakery, and they were prepared. They weren't made and you had to wait for them. It was like grab one off the shelf. They looked delicious. They were delicious. Yeah. And it was their kind of take on commissary, as opposed to sticking it in a hot box or a cold box or something like that. And it somehow seems more inviting the way they were presenting their commissary.
Yeah. Yeah. And, everything's so fresh too. I think that's one of the things that resonates with the food in Ireland is it's just fresh. It's just good.
Well, also, we saw a couple unique things when we went to California this year. We stopped. We had, I think, double lunch where.
Oh, geez, yeah.
We
ate a lot.
We had. Was it birria? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I believe so. So I think the tacos, the birria tacos, which was Birria Boys, which is in a Shell station, and I think we were in Elk Grove. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Elk Grove. And it's this guy, we actually wrote about it Al Hebert wrote about it in the October issue of Next Magazine. This guy, Chris Cornelius, him and his brother, kind of took over an abandoned spot that had some kind of food concept at some point.
Yeah, it was a Subway or a Blimpies or something like that.
And, birria, I believe, traditionally is either like goat or lamb or something. And he does it with a beef short rib, and it's 20 different spices, 9 hours to cook. Right. I mean, it just gets so soft and tender. And, my favorite thing about it was I got to dip my delicious taco in this beefy consomme broth that was just like I could have drank all on its own. And it was just so freaking good, right? Like, I mean, it's like, because when you go to, California and you're going to get good tacos, right? The tacos, especially when you're in like, San Diego and stuff, like you get good tacos. And so to find this place, that was pretty special. I will definitely take that one with me for a very long time.
He took some time with us. He has a great story to tell. If you go there,
so passionate about what he's doing. Yeah. So freaking passionate. I really love that, meeting him and talking to him.
And the thing is, what you just noticed in that store is, stores in California tend to be smaller because real estate costs. But I think you pointed it out, 3/4 of the people that walked in that store were not stopping at the counter. They were going right to the food counter and ordering taco, burrito, something like that. Yeah. It just created a buzz where it just felt like the place to be. And you had no idea. We did a little advanced research, but you had no idea until you walked in that door that there was something magical there. And the same thing happened when we went right after that. We went to this place called Spinners. That was in a 76 gas station.
Like I hadn't eaten enough already. But Spinners was fun because as soon as we pulled up, before you even got out of the car, you could smell it.
Oh, yeah. You were at the fueling island and you smelled cinnamon
bun. Gas. You smelled cinnamon rolls. And so it was like that cartoon with like, the little mouse is like being led by the aroma. And that was us. Like we were literally led in there by our noses, and it was the best cinnamon roll I think I've ever had.
And not too shabby muffins either. But basically it goes back to the point, very small footprint. And there was nothing built out about either one of these small stores. They made it work in that space, and they really created something special. Yeah. So I
want to go back to the tacos, though, because I have to point out that the taco itself was amazing, but just remember this. We dipped the taco in this broth that was like otherworldly. Like,
yeah, it was.
I mean, I can't say enough about it.
Yeah. And I'll just throw out one more thing about food before we talk a little bit about experience and wrap this up. For the first time, I've seen potato chips made on site in convenience stores. I saw that in Dash Inn. We saw that in Wally's. So you're just seeing next level stuff.
Popcorn, all of it, yeah.
But it takes a little bit more to make potato chips than it does French fries. And you're just seeing the different types of skills, and people seek out these different things. And I guess if we were to describe the stores we visited this year, experience really comes to the fore. There's something that makes you talk about the store. Was there anything that you, besides what we talked about, that just said like, yes, that's the experience. That's what I wish everybody could experience, because it's difficult to create, but once you have it, just keep that thing going.
Yeah, I'll just go back to what our Don Rhodes, our chairman last year, what he kind of really wanted to grasp and showcase as much as he possibly could with the broader, convenience store community. It's the people. Like every store we walked in, we were greeted. It was, you felt welcomed. And I'm not just saying that because we work at NACS, and because we walked in there, people didn't know who we were. It's not like, we wave a flag saying we're with NACS, and they may not even know what NACS is anyway. But I mean, you really did get a sense of, these folks really give a crap about the people walking through the door. I felt it. And I think once we actually started, a few times that we did, Don, of course, jumped behind the register and took a picture with everybody. Yeah. But once we, said who we were and that we weren't, just these crazy tourists running around. There's a lot of interest, and they asked where we were from. They wanted to know where else we had been. They were interested in our experience, seeing what else is out there in the industry. And that's just, this community of convenience retail is just inviting, and it's sharing, and it is special.
Yeah, for me, it was, once again, going back to this road trip that Stephanie Stuckey took me on just around Atlanta. One of the places we went to, I think it was called Candler Market. And up by the register, just to the right of the register, there were probably 50 different holiday cards, pictures of kids, pictures of dogs and cats, and you name it. But people have embraced this store so much that they will send them holiday cards, that they will want the picture of or the management says, hey, do you know what? I just heard you had a baby. Can I stick the picture of the baby on the wall? Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of a couple other places where I saw this. I saw this going to Springfield, Massachusetts a couple of years ago. I've seen it in a couple other stores. They all tend to be one-store operators. And I know for anybody that has brand guidelines and things like that, you're probably thinking like, we can't possibly have all this clutter in our stores. We have 200 stores where we're kind of set in our ways. Use your app. Use something like that.
Yeah, because social media.
When you think about it, if I have a picture of your child on my wall, you're not going to cheat on me for 2 cents a gallon for gas. Right. You're gonna be coming back to me. So there was something pretty powerful about that human connection, and we certainly sampled a lot of great products. We saw a lot of really cool things in design. We didn't even get into that, but it does come down to you walk in that store, how you greeted, what's that experience like, and why do you want to come back? And
can't wait to do it again.
I can't either. And for those that want to suggest places for us to visit, just send one of us a message. Find us on social media. We have that.
Because some of the places that we ended up in California were from someone telling us on social media, following us on social media, saying like, hey, since you guys are in this area, you got to go to X, Y, and Z. And we did. And thank God we did.
It was literally Peyton Manning saying Omaha, and we called an audible, and we said, okay, let's blow up today's schedule. We got 2 places to visit, and one of them turned out to be wine tasting. So it was awesome.
Lots of good
Except
stuff.
We were early for that. It was at 1:30, and we came by at 10:30. So we missed that, but we totally saw what it was all about. So, we just wanted to share some of these ideas about what we saw over the past year. And as you're looking at the new year, keep some of these things in mind. And if you have suggestions for what we might want to visit, please tell us. More than likely, we'll be there at some point.
Especially if it involves tacos.
We got it, right?
Cool.
Well, anyway, great start to a new year. And thank you all.
Let's do it.
Thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Thank you.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.